wow, we're not getting enough for our, whatever it is they grow. Maybe it's wheat, maybe it's dairy products. We don't get enough to make a living on, so government comes in and subsidizes them. Well, the reason that prices are so low, obviously, is because too much is being produced. Either demand is too low or supply is too high, and that's why the prices are low.
Right.
But when government comes in and says, gives wheat farmers subsidies so they can grow more wheat and that they can then charge more for it, it ends up hurting the poor people who have to go buy bread and pancake mix from the grocery store. So the people who end up paying more are those who are least able to pay it.
Right.
And you find this whether it's in rent controls, whether it's in price fixing of wages or salaries, anywhere that government comes in and tries to interfere with the economy, it has a ripple effect that is always disastrous. It ends up distorting prices, and prices are an incredibly important measurement in our economic life because it tells us what things are worth, and it tells capital ventures, people who want to invest money in businesses, where is the biggest demand? Where is the growth? Where do we need this? When government comes in and subsidizes various industries, it's going into industries that can't make it on their own. What does that mean when a business is failing? It means people aren't buying the stuff. People don't want it. So if the people don't want it, let that business die, and there will always be competition that will come in and provide newer, better services or products. And that government intervention never lets that happen. And that's the problem with the ideas like the right to a job or the right to health care or the right to a house. It's government coming into various markets and disrupting that natural relationship between supply and demand that everyone learns about in Econ 101 their first year of college.
Yeah, and this is not to say there aren't times in which we want the government funding certain things, like the Manhattan Project or whatever, the Apollo. But to have the idea that government is the answer to our problems and to hire these nameless, faceless bureaucrats forever to lord it over us, you got to remember basic stuff. They don't create any wealth. They've got to take it from others who are productive in the form of taxes in order to redistribute it in order to fund it. And so go ahead.
And here's the thing. We have learned this not only from history, we've lived through this history. We experienced the Great Depression, and during the Great Depression, under Franklin Roosevelt, government grew enormously, and they engaged in all kinds of experiments of social programs, basically taking money out of the private sector through increasingly progressive taxation and creating all kinds of federal programs to, quote, put people to work. And yet, the unemployment rate hovered around 20% the entire time throughout his presidency, all 4 terms. And so anyone says, well, we needed those programs because of the Depression. No, those programs actually caused the Depression to be much deeper and much longer than it would have. So we've learned these lessons, but it's it sounds so attractive when a government official says, we will offer you these things. We know times are tough. We're going to offer you the right to a job or the right to a house. And the question for the American people is, are they going to be fooled again, the way that we were fooled in the 1930s and 40s? Or do we want to go back to a formula that we know works? And that formula is a very limited government that does things. It's interesting, the 2 projects you mentioned, the Manhattan Project and Apollo, those both were ultimately national security, national defense oriented. That's why we were doing those things.
Right.
And the federal government should be spending money on those types of measures that help keep us safe. Other than that, government should be very limited in what it does, and the American people should be secure in their property rights, meaning if they work to acquire, whether it's $1 or $1 million, they should be very safe in that property. And that unleashes human ingenuity, entrepreneurship, industriousness in a way that's never happened before in history. That's really our options that are in front of us in this upcoming election.
Tom Cronawetter, great stuff, bro, and I will have you back. We'll talk further about this.